Welcome back to the 49ers Nuggets of Gold show. Today, I'm going to be here with Tyler Crowder. We're going to be talking about, a couple 49ers second-year players and rookies that have a chance to really break out. Some of them are guys that are just not really known, and they're going to make the roster and definitely are going to be contributors. Other guys are guys that are emerging as really important players for this team and guys that either one of us really likes. So let's start out with the second-year guys first. Looking at this draft class, the guys we're going to talk about today are going to be Javon Kinlaw, Brandon Aiyuk, and Jauan Jennings. So, Tyler, do you just want to talk a little bit about where you had these guys coming out of school and how you thought of them after their rookie year? Now, Jauan Jennings didn't play. He was out for the year. But Brandon Aiyuk and Javon Kinlaw were both huge contributors to the 49ers last year and really look like some building blocks moving forward. I will say there have been some questions looming about Javon Kinlaw, but I know you liked him a lot coming out. So do you want to just kind of talk about, what you feel about the potential with a guy like Javon Kinlaw?
Yeah, he has a high motor. I mean, I remember watching his tape at South Carolina and just like you're like, who is this guy? He just keeps going and going. He's like the Energizer Bunny. I mean, for a guy that's that big. So I know you've talked a little bit about him struggling this year, and that could just be a lot of things going in, after the rookie year last year, and then with all the COVID stuff, and then you have the off season this year, and he's going into his second year, and he could just be exhausted. I mean, it could just be hey, it's hitting that wall, maybe that he didn't hit last year as a rookie, but now he may be hitting it. But I really like Javon Kinlaw. I had him as like a top 15, top 20 talent in the 2020 draft. I wanted the Atlanta Falcons to get him really bad. I knew when the 49ers like moved up or whatever, I knew they were going to get him. And like when they did, I was like really upset. Now the Falcons ended up getting AJ Terrell, so I was really excited about that, the way he played last year. But Kinlaw was a guy who you could have put right beside Grady Jarrett in that like 3 technique, and you can kind of move him around. He can play the 2, he can play the 1-0 technique. I mean, he can move all around in between the center and the guard. So just a guy with a high motor, I remember, and I mean, great size. And just a player who I know he played a lot last year. I know he had some flashes. I think he's going to have a great year this year. I mean, you could be looking at a guy, 50 stops and maybe 5 sacks or so. I mean, literally, if you can get in pressure from that interior, from the interior defensive line, I mean, that's always huge. Look at guys like Grady Jarrett, Aaron Donald. They're able to create havoc inside. So if Kinlaw can give you some of that, I know he's a big run stopper, but man, if he can give you, 5-6 sacks, that would be huge this year for the 49ers. And then you look at a guy like Brandon Aiyuk, freak athlete, very physical, can play the inside, can play the outside, can come around and have reverse plays, can run the ball. I mean, he can do it all. I mean, look for him to really get involved, make that second year leap that Debo Samuel was kind of supposed to make last year, but was injured. Look for Brandon Aiyuk to really, really kind of be that number 1 wide receiver for the 49ers. I think he can be that number 1 guy, and Debo Samuel will be more of that kind of gadget type player who can kind of do it all for you, but more of a, have a couple hundred rushing yards, 800 receiving yards, and kind of just do it all for you. But Brandon Aiyuk's more of a, can get, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdown type receiver. So I really liked him coming out of Arizona State. I had him as, top 10 wide receiver, I believe. I don't know exactly where I had him ranked. I think I had a 2nd round grade on him, but I know 49ers got him late first. So, I mean, it was right there, late, early 2nd, late 1st round grade on him. Definitely had a top grade on Kinlaw. So Jennings, yes, you talk about him. I honestly, I know he had a long 4-year career at Tennessee, up and down, had the big catch against Georgia, the Hail Mary that everyone remembers him for, can go to Tennessee and get free drinks for life. But, at the end of the day, second-year players is where you really look for, these guys to make those huge moves up. Asking those rookies to do what they did last year is a lot. So, if they can just improve just a little bit, they're going to have huge second years. And that's what I think about those 2 guys. And then Jennings, like you said, he's a guy who's been showing out in camp and can really, a guy like that, who's going to be your 4th, 5th wide receiver, is going to have to play a ton of special teams. So he's going to be a special team guy. And that's really how – look at Matthew Slater with the New England Patriots. I mean, he's had almost, 18-year career or however long. I don't know. I mean, he's been with the Patriots forever. I mean, he's literally a receiver, but I mean, just play special teams. So you can niche out a nice little career and make yourself a lot of money just playing special teams and just going hard. So look for Brandon Aiyuk to finish as like a wide receiver 2 this year in fantasy football. I mean, I'm high on him, top 60 player. So just really excited for these 2 second-year guys for the 49ers.
I love where you're at on Brandon Aiyuk. I feel like he is so underrated. People think that – so I personally think that he's going to get quite a few more targets than George Kittle. I think he's going to have more catches than George Kittle. And I don't think a lot of people think that's how it is. I think they almost think of it like George Kittle 1, Aiyuk, Debo like 2A, 2B. And I'm pretty confident it's going to be almost like 1A, Aiyuk, 1B Kittle, and then almost like 3, like your third option is Debo. I think it's going to be a little bit more segmented like that. Now, Debo's looked really good, but Brandon Aiyuk, you can look at his route tree. It's green everywhere. It's absurd. He gets open in pretty much any way you ask him to. He gets pressed the line of scrimmage. He's a strong enough player to get off of it, quick enough player to get off of it. And he's just gets open all the time. He's also going to be the featured piece, I think, in the passing game. When you use George Kittle, a lot of George Kittle's like best plays are giant touchdowns where he throws a guy on the ground, throws a safety on the ground, and takes it, 80 yards to the house or whatever the case is. The guy that they're going to ask to move the chains a lot more is going to be Brandon Aiyuk. And not like George Kittle can't do that, but Brandon Aiyuk is just a really, really good player. And he gets so much separation that they're going to use him a lot this year, and especially a lot moving forward. I think maybe not this year, but the next year, I would not be surprised if he's a 1,400-yard receiver. I don't know if the touchdowns will ever be crazy with him, like his touchdown upside, but I think that he's a guy that I don't see why he couldn't. This year, I think he'll go 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, something like that. That's what I'm expecting. But he's a really good player. Javon Kinlaw, like I said, it sounds like he's struggling a little bit in camp. Hard to tell with some guys, though, like, oh, he's struggling in camp. And then they'll just come out. It's like, oh, yeah, let's remember that dude's a gamer.
Exactly. That's probably what's going to happen with him. I mean, I'm just like, that's like, when I watched this film, like every time I watched it, I was like, man, I like really like this guy. Like that's how I know I really like guys, when you just keep watching, like you watch plays, and yes, everyone's highlight tapes look good, but like when you watch a complete game of someone and they're just doing it the entire game, that's when you really know, like, man, like this guy, and he's getting blocked by SEC. I mean, good talent. I mean, it's not like he's going against, scrubs. I mean, he was out there putting in work in the SEC for a team who was kind of down, and he was out there, just, putting in work. So Debo Samuel played with him at South Carolina, those 2 South Carolina guys. And Debo Samuel is a guy, I really like Debo Samuel. I'm not trying to say he's not like a receiver, but he's just like, you can use him in so many different ways. He's just like he's like one of those knives you take on the camping trips that can do 9 things. I mean, that's what Debo Samuel is. I mean, he is a really talented player. I just think Brandon Aiyuk is more of like a polished receiver, can move the chains, kind of be your in between the 20 guys. And then, you can have Kittle and Debo, and then you can have this running game to finish off touchdowns. But in between the 20, Aiyuk's your guy.
Yeah, I'm definitely there with you. But let's talk about this 2021 draft class a little bit. Not going to talk about Trey Lance. Just talked about him and Zach Wilson yesterday. And for this segment, I'm going to talk about 3 guys who I think have widely become pretty clear they're going to be the biggest rookie contributors. Those guys, Trey Sermon, Diamador Lenore, and Talanoa Hufanga. Now it makes sense. You kind of like these guys out of the class the most. These are the most notable guys to you. So you just kind of want to talk about where you're at in these guys, because it seems like these 3 guys outside of Trey Lance, or maybe even more than Trey Lance, let's see kind of how this year goes on with him and Jimmy, but it seems like these are the 3 pieces that are going to be used the most this year and are going to be the most important for the 49ers to put up wins.
Yeah, so Trey Sermon is a guy who, he's actually from Georgia. He's like from Marietta. I think he went to like Sprayberry High School or one of these schools up in Marietta. So I followed him, when he went out to Oklahoma. And, he had a nice little career at Oklahoma in a crowded backfield. They had like Kennedy Brooks and all these other guys. And, just never really got his really fair share, his great look. And then he went to Ohio State, and he didn't do much for, the first few games. But, man, once he like got on a roll in the Big Ten championship game and the playoffs. And people forget he broke his collarbone on the first carry in the national championship. He was out of that game. So I'm not saying he would have made a huge difference. He probably wouldn't have won the game, but I think he definitely would have helped being able to get some yards against that Alabama defense. But Trey Sermon is a guy I had ranked in my top 85 players. I think I had him at 84 or 83. I can't remember exactly, but somewhere in that range. I had him also as my number 6 or 7 running back. So you look at the running back position, you can get great value in the second, third, fourth round. I think Trey Sermon was a late third rounder, early fourth rounder. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what was he? Was he late third? Was he fourth?
He was late third.
So late third, 90 something overall. So
yeah, they traded up to get him.
Thought that was a great fit. Where he picked. He's gonna kind of be more of that boom, while you have Moser as more of that lightning. You have you have thunder and lightning, and that's kind of what I think. Moser is a guy who can take you 80 yards on any given play, and Trey Sermon is a guy who's going to get a lot of touches inside the red zone. Look for Trey Sermon to have anywhere from 400 to 600 yards rushing this year, and 5-6 touchdowns. I think that's very, very a good, prediction of what he may be this year. I think somewhere around there, a guy who you may want, fantasy football, you have Mostert, you want to have him as your handcuff. Mostert is going to miss a couple games. So, at the end of the day, Sermon's going to get some carries. Look for maybe him to have 100-plus carries, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, something like that. I think that's realistic. And then you look at the cornerback from Oregon, a guy who I really like, physical, 5'10", but plays bigger than that. Multi-year starter at Oregon, guy who, when you watch the tape at Oregon, he's gonna be around football. So he's got very good ball skills. He had the viral clip that came up, with his technique that he, kind of bullied the wide receiver, made the interception. So he's a guy who's going to play. And then, with the secondary issues that the 49ers have, they're not bringing back Richard Sherman, and, they're getting younger. So they're going to go through some growing pains here and there. But as a corner, you just want to, have great technique, go out there and just not get burned. Okay. That's really, you just don't want to get burned. You're going to give up some plays here and there, but at the end of the day, trust your technique, trust everyone around you, trust your safeties. And then, the rest will be history. I think he's going to play. I mean, that's what you're saying. Looks like he's going to be a contributor this year. So what's he like? Number 3 corner, number 4 corner?
He's the number. I don't know if he's technically the number 4 corner, but he definitely looks like week 1 he'll be the first corner coming off the bench.
Yeah, special teams guy.
Yeah. However, I do think he has a chance to start relatively early on over Emmanuel Mosley if there's any struggles there. Or if anyone goes down, I think he'll plug into he'll probably plug in outside no matter what. Because they have some options that could play nickel. But I do think he's the first guy off the bench. And I wouldn't be surprised if he starts in 8 games this year.
And you can never have too many. You can never have too many corners. You really can't. I mean, that's your top 4 corner. You're going to be getting a lot of playing time. Then he's also going to be playing on special teams in there. And then all you got to do is when you're on the field, you make a couple plays, and then boom, you're right there starting. So, look for him, to have a great season. And then the former USC Trojan, what's his last name again? One more time.
Funga.
Okay. That guy's all over the place. He's going to be like a special teams guru, and then the coaches are going to end up liking him so much he's probably going to end up playing some, on defense just because the guy's all over the place. I watched maybe a couple minutes of the game the other day versus I watched the Trey Lance highlights of the game, but I'm talking about the actual game I was watching on NFL Network. And boom, they start talking about him right away because he's just all over the place. He's a guy the coaches love in camp. Probably have to get him to settle down sometimes at camp. He just probably goes full speed so much. But that's always you can add a former Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year to your roster. I mean, that's a bonus in itself. But what do you like about him? What do you think he brings to the 49ers defense?
So you're talking about how Debo Samuel is almost like that, kind of Swiss Army knife guy.
Yeah.
That's how Hufanga is on the defensive side of the football. And I think we're seeing this more and more with guys where they'll just like, hey, he's not going to be a starter. He's not a 3-down player, but you put him in there. You put him in weird spots. You put him in packages where he's coming off the edge blitzing. You play him on every single special teams play, and he's going to be an incredibly impactful player from day one.
Yeah.
The best part about him was in like training camp, like where it was like 7-on-7s and like OTAs and that kind of stuff where there's no contact. He was struggling a lot. And then the first day of pads, it was like, oh yeah, Hufanga was the best player at practice today. And I was like, oh, that's how he is. That's right. That's what it looked like at USC as well. So he's kind of been everything that I think that everyone's expected and more, like, and then some, just because it's like he just brings the energy. On defense, you don't want him lined up in coverage. He's not a very good coverage player. Yeah. But if he's if he's just around the line of scrimmage, he's going to make big time plays. So I think that we'll see him in a lot of sub packages, more in like running situations. I bet you'll see him on goal line a lot too, just blowing up plays and doing stuff like that. And of course, his goal actually this year is to be a Pro Bowl special teamer.
So what's he listed as? Is he like an outside linebacker?
He's technically a box safety right now.
Okay, so he's like a strong safety / outside linebacker, kind of like what Nasruddin will be for the Jets, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did not watch a lot of his tape. I mean, I just have heard about him a little bit. I've heard his name and things like that, and watched a little bit about him. But that's definitely a guy I'll definitely have to keep up with. And I mean, you look for these first year players. You can get any value of these first year players in their first year. It's always great for your roster. John Lynch is trying to build a complete roster, so that's and the 49ers are right there. So in the toughest division in football, I mean, that's I don't think that's even a question right now going into this year. You have the Rams, you have the Seahawks, you have the 49ers, you got the Cardinals they're not chopped liver or anything like that. So, I mean, tough division. You're going to need some of these second-year players to step up, and then some of these rookies. Trey Sermon, hey, one injury to Mostert, boom, and he's your guy. So, very excited to see what happens. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, building this roster. And then, of course, like you said, Trey Lance, we talked about him yesterday, but Trey Lance is going to get the keys to this franchise, and really can't wait to see what he does with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for coming on, Tyler. If you guys didn't check it out, yesterday we did a Trey Lance versus Zach Wilson video. Super fun. Talked about, when Trey Lance will take over and stuff like this, but really cool to kind of, look at these guys that could potentially be big-time contributors that are really young players for this team. Briefly went over Jawan Jennings. If you guys didn't know, he's pretty much, I think he's pretty much become a lock to make the roster as a receiver. And going into camp, it did not seem like that was the expectations for him. It was, a very bubble guy to make this team. So it's looking like he's going to do that. Brandon Aiyuk, Javon Kinlaw, love those two. And then this year, I think we should expect Trey Sermon, Diamador Lenore, and Talanoa Hufanga to make the biggest impacts for this 49ers team, outside of Trey Lance, of course. But that's going to do it for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I'll be back talking 49ers football. We'll definitely have to have Tyler on throughout the season. And, yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Tyler's stuff, he mentioned it yesterday, but you want to just give a quick shout-out to your show and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, man, Kicking It with Crowder, Facebook. Got a Facebook page, Kicking It with Crowder, YouTube, Kicking It with Crowder, and then Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio app. Weekly content coming to you guys. And, yeah, definitely good follow. Unbiased opinion. I just call it like I see it. And, yeah, man, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Tyler. And we'll talk to everyone very soon.
All right. See you, man.